After setting actually the syntax, the correlated, let's say, components of this connectivity, the ADO.NET actually interface, we would have actually launched the execution in the sense of once we have actually the connection path from the front end to the back end, then we clearly have the query. As per the example we saw earlier, it is a simple select. Here it is. A simple select star from authors. This is the query we need in this example here. Then after, actually, everything is there. We have only to execute this process here, this connection and this command passing from here, the front end to the back end. We have to execute that. To do so, we have one of the three options. We have one of the three options to execute this and to launch this execution here. Remember, the execution we mean here is the activation of the connection with the query to pass to the backend solution. Three options means we can use any. Yeah, absolutely. The three can be utilized. Yeah, there are differences we have to recognize in order to succeed in using the best solution in terms of time gain and resource, let's say, manipulation. Usually, resource you mean actually the memory and feasibility of the application. Execute Scala, execute non-query, and execute reader. There are three predefined methods responsible of executing the activation of the connection path and the submission of the query to the backend solution. Starting with the first one, the execute Scala. The execute Scala here it is. It's one. Those are the three actually, and we discussed them the three. The execute Scala is one of the solutions that would lead us to succeed activating the link. Plus, it would help us to pass the query and retrieve the response. One key feature here, this execute reader is it perfectly fits the solution when we are trying to retrieve one single value. In the sense of we are having, for example, the student's table, and we're going to retrieve only the ID of the student. We have the student ID. We need to retrieve his mobile number, or his email only, or his parents' contact. One value we need. So the execute Scala is one of the very perfect solutions that would help in doing so. In the sense of, would it activate execute Scala? Would it activate the connection path? Answer is true. Would the execute Scala submit the query once we are passing the query, whatever the query is, from the front end interface to the back end interface? The answer is yes, true, it would. So what is the added value? The added value is that it acts differently. It communicates with the back end to retrieve one single value per time. Single value like as I was saying, the name, maybe mobile number, maybe contact, maybe something like that. When things get more complicated, and as per, for example, the following example, we are going to retrieve everything actually in an entity. In addition to, we are going to pass more than one query. For example, select and insert and update and things like that. The thing is a little bit actually complicated, and we have a bunch of, let's say, queries to pass and responses to retrieve. The execute non-query is the best to fit in this regard, and this execute non-query it would deal with the SQL queries in general, and more specifically with the data manipulation language queries to manipulate data, not to create objects. So it fits very, very, very fine. Once actually this execute non-query, actually it has a return value, means it would execute the thing. For example, we are going to insert a value, so nothing to be retrieved in response. We're going to insert, so nothing to be retrieved in response. Yet it provides a return value, this execute non-query here, which is a value. It returns something here in the sense of actually it returns a number, which is the number of the affected rows. The number of the affected rows if everything is have passed fine. Otherwise, it would return a negative value, which is -1, if any errors happen, if any problems happen, if any actually misbehavior happens. This is the title of example, only this example of SQL command here. The third one, the execute reader here, it's still we are talking about executing the activation of the link plus the passing of the query from the front end to the back end. Was the added value? The added value is actually to retrieve data in rows, let's say something like that, to be stored and utilized again and again and again as tables in the structured, let's say, format, something like that. Means we're going to retrieve a bunch of values. It is not limited to retrieve only one value like the execute reader, sorry, the execute scalar, but it retrieves data, whatever the size of the data is, in a formatted way. We may say in a table format that we can read row by row. So the data will be actually retrieved. I'm saying concentrate well. We are talking about retrieving the data, and this data would be formatted in a specific format. And generally, we may talk about a table-like content to be read later on, record by record or row by row. Execute reader. We presented that actually in an early age, the definition of the SQL, the system data libraries, when we said that the .NET uses a bunch of libraries to finalize these tasks. We defined also the connected mode, connectivity or behavior, disconnected mode, connectivity or behavior. And we said that in the connected mode, a connection path has to be activated, open, once for all, during the whole life cycle of the application. And within the disconnected mode, a connectivity would be opened and closed only as per the request. Once we request to retrieve data, a connection will be opened, data would be retrieved, then closed. Disconnected mode. So only if needed, the connection will be activated. Otherwise, it is closed for usual. This is the definition. This is the theoretical definition here. When we talk about technical approach, here how it is being realized, this disconnected mode and this connected mode, we would see actually classes responsible for doing so. Connected mode means usually we have data actually, and we can retrieve the data continuously. To achieve such a behavior without wasting time and making the application run fine, there are libraries for that. The DataReader is the class or the library responsible for optimizing the behavior of the application with a connected mode. The application will be preserving the connectivity active during the long life of the application, the long life cycle of the application. Okay, the application would not present actually an anomaly, time waste, or let's say a latency in responding to the requests. This is due to what? Oh, okay, with the help of this data reader here, the data reader here, sorry, at the end, it is a library that would provide utilities to achieve the work in lifetime, and the connectivity would be actually maintained active during the life cycle of the application without termination in connected mode means. And it would give actually a direct access to the resources during the long life of this application question. DataReader. Before I continue, we will see actually a comparison of this DataReader towards with the dataset, because the DataReader will define the connectivity or the connected mode architecture. The dataset would define the work and the behavior of the application within the disconnected mode architecture. Yeah, so here we will compare both of them. In a connected mode, DataReader will behave, will act, and in a disconnected mode, the dataset will behave and will act. So there is a table that is good for you, and you have to refer to that to distinguish between both of them. DataReader is the library that would actually enhance the behavior of the work when we discuss the connected mode architecture. The dataset is the library, or let's say the package that defines the list of functionalities, utilities responsible for accomplishing the work on top of an application set upon the disconnected mode architecture. There will be differences. Which one is the best? It's a difficult question here. We cannot specify, oh, okay, disconnected mode, it will not make me or make the application waste time, so it is the best. No, it's not like that. It's not because of the first definition of those two we specify this or the other. No. So it is upon the request, upon the project, upon the application to decide. Those are the clue 10 differences in between this and that. You see, and based on the question and request or the application required, you specify which is the best. Thuraya, are you here?
Yes.
Okay, great. Let's talk a little bit technical here, and let's see an example of a population of an element, and .NET element. We are going to populate it. We will talk about the list boxes. The list boxes here, actually, it's one of the .NET tools that we may use to populate multi-valued, let's say, values. We are going to retrieve many values at the same time. For example, the ID, the name, the mobile number, the email, the majors, method of registration, a bunch of values we are going to retrieve, and we'll display them in one shot. One of the tools to use, the controls to use, is the list box. We may refer to a list box to fulfill such an example. As per the example here, the last name, the first name, the ID, those are three values we are going to retrieve from an entity inside the database in question, whatever, and we're going to populate a given list box with those values. After retrieving, after passing this query and execute this query here, we would be actually utilizing the result, after executing the thing here, execute reader. See here, this is the command utilized to execute the request. We're going to use the result, which is stored here in this variable here, the reader, to populate an item, which is the list box. Here it is. Just give me a second, my computer has stacked. Yeah, here it is, to populate an item, which is the list item. It's a list box here. And we're going to add the values with the actually references. We are going to, since the value is still not related to have, as per the example here, three values only to have that we have only three values: the last name, the first name, and the ID. No, we may have more than that. We may have less than that. Since it is still having values, we're going to populate the text. We would put it in the name. Sorry, we'll read it from the name. And the value of this item in question, the first, the second, the third, and so on, the value is the ID. And then after, if we need something else, we may add that. So this is the way how to concatenate the red values from the database into this thing here, into this list box. Refer to this one actually for further understanding, for further clarification, please. Yeah, we come to the second architecture here, which is this connected mode here, via which we may see a scenario of retrieving the data once requested only. Connectivity will be activated, query passed, solution retrieved or response retrieved, then connection disconnected, or let's say terminated, closed. And this scenario would happen again and again and again and again upon the life cycle of the question, of the application. Every time a request is being required to pass to the database, a connectivity has to be activated, the request to pass, the response to retrieve, and then after the connectivity to close. Again, the third time, the fourth time, and so on. This behavior will be going on again and again whenever required. And this describes the disconnected mode, or this disconnected architecture, via which we may access the data in a disconnected way. Okay, that's good. This is the definition. How it behaves, Actually, the dataset is the library responsible for doing so. The dataset is the system library responsible for providing. The utility is responsible for doing so. To pass a query in a disconnected mode, dataset will give you actually the library for that. Yet there is a clue here. There is another value that this dataset would be actually utilized to enhance the behavior. Remember, if we're going to every time check the connectivity and get connected or not, there will be a time waste. It's not the best behavior to do in this view, in this regard only. So the dataset will take care of this point. Yes, absolutely. We will check the connectivity and we'll keep this connectivity active again and again and again, for usual. Yeah, absolutely. Yet this dataset, yeah, absolutely, it would actually work in background by storing what have been retrieved from the database using a query for a future use. Means first time the data would be actually utilized to let's say retrieve data, it would be utilized to fill up and populate one of the controls. Whatever the control is, list box, or let's say here a grid view or something like that, any. The dataset would help in doing so by retrieving the data and storing it in a local memory, like the cache. We defined the cache in an early age in this class. Something like that, view state, or let's say we use actually local memory to store the data and retrieve it again and again and again from the local memory. Requests to interrogate the same entity for the same purpose would not be passed to the server in the future time. No, it would be passed directly to the local memory where the result have been the residual data is there since the first request. So it is in a disconnected mode, yes, but it will not make the time be wasted to check the connectivity towards the server again and again. No, it would be checked towards the local controls, local memory available controls, to use the data retrieved in an early age. Yeah, and not only that. So here with the data set, it would behave something like the data reader in the connected mode, yet in a local environment. What does it mean? Can we retrieve more than one entity at the same time and navigate amongst the entities, the tables means, at the same time? Answer is yes, true, we can. Here it is. So the data set would deal in this connected mode and would have the capability to retrieve more than one entity at the same time, and would enhance the manipulation of those entities locally at the same time. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So it would succeed in doing so. And this way, and because of this definition only, we will not be able to say that the dataset will cause time waste when checking the connectivity. No. So if I ask you an answer, a true-false question, saying dataset will cause time waste when discussing or when tackling the matter of checking the connectivity. The answer is no, because the connectivity will be done with the local memory, not with the server side. Local memory components, local memory stored controls, something like that. It will work efficiently, this is for sure. So those are the definitions of those two, data reader and data set, exactly. Okay. More than that, the table adapter, or let's say the data adapter, the data adapter is a scenario via which we're going to see another .NET solution that bridges the connectivity in between the control objects, let's say, whatever the object is, and the real view in the front-end interface, the ASP.NET component. What does it mean? The data set would retrieve objects from the database and store them in a local memory cache. Okay, the request in the front end, the ASP.NET interface, would specify the thing in a certain shape, in a specific sequential order, specific, let's say, formatting also. The data set, it does not have, it's not from his business to format the retrieved data. No. It takes care and tackles only to retrieve, to store locally, and to maintain the connectivity once for a short period of time, disconnected mode. The data reader, the data adapter will come in action here. It would format the output and connects those values from the local object, the dataset objects, with the physical, let's say, component, which are the interfaces, the screens or whatever, the ASP.NET components. Data adapter, they are not only done for retrieving, but also can be utilized for inflow, like the insert or the update. The statement in C#, to activate the data adapter is the following, using the SQLDataAdapter. It's an object to be generated and later on be utilized somehow. Depends on the solution, no more, no less. Okay, chapter 3 is over. Chapter 3 is over. This is an example of this is a program that actually illustrates all what we saw. I'll discuss that. I'll discuss this example. I'm going to discuss it tomorrow, inshallah. Clearly, I give you the chance to have a view on that until I meet you tomorrow, and I'll give you this recorder today. Just wait for me until I receive this recorder.